The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everybody. Sorry for the slight delay, but welcome to Use of Social Media's webinar on customer-centric social media. Over the next 50 minutes, we'll be discussing what it means to be customer-centric, both regards to your social strategy and also your wider business strategy, as well as how to generate unrivaled customer experience through your social interactions. My name is Jack Edgar. I'm the project director here at Useful Social Media, and I'll be hosting today's webinar. And the webinar actually forms part of the agenda for this year's Corporate Social Media Summit, taking place in New York on June the 15th and 16th. And all four of today's panelists will be there, speaking alongside 40 senior executives from the world's most social brands. Now, before we get started with today's discussion, I just want to remind you that we are recording this webinar, so everyone will receive the audio recordings early next week. And the webinar is very much interactive as well, so we'll have several anonymous polls taking place throughout the discussion. Please do vote and please do get involved. I also urge you to type in your own questions so we can ensure the debate and insight is tailored to your challenges, and I'll be incorporating these into the discussion as we go. You can see the chat box on the left-hand side of your screen. We're also using the hashtag CSMNY, which you can see on the right-hand side of the slide. So again, any questions or additional thoughts, please do share them. Now, joining us today, I'm delighted to introduce, firstly, Jennifer Domenichini. She is the Chief Marketing Officer at BBVA Compass. Jared Schultheis, the Executive Director of Digital Media Outreach and Customer Relations at Comcast. We have Josh March, the CEO of Conversocial. And finally, Lisa Melton, the Assistant Vice President of Marketing at Amica Mutual Insurance. Welcome to each of you. Now, the notion of customer centricity, both regards to one's social strategy and also wider business strategy, has become increasingly popular over the last couple of years, with some companies formally acknowledging this shift through creating the position of the Chief Customer Officer, for example. And to start off, I think it would be nice and interesting to find out the extent to which our audience has actually made an explicit commitment to customer centricity at their company. So this forms the basis of our first poll, and you can only select one answer, and I'll give you around about 15 seconds to do so. And the question is, has your company specifically stated internally or externally a commitment to being customer-centric? Has your company specifically stated internally or externally a specific commitment to being customer-centric? And the answer is either yes or no. I'll just give you another 3 seconds to do so. Thank you very much. And we should have the results coming up on our screen relatively soon. Fantastic. And as you can see, we have around 80% saying there has been an internal or external admission or formal admission of committing themselves to a more customer-centric approach. Now, I'm sure for those who haven't specifically committed to becoming customer-centric, this doesn't exactly mean that you do not care about your customers, of course. But coming first to you, Jared, I know at Comcast, you refer to this idea of customer centricity and have actually made a formal commitment to being more customer centric. So what can such a formal admission actually do and actually help you achieve?
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me on. You know, I think setting an objective around customer centricity is starting a journey. So I don't know if you ever fully achieve your customer-centric goals, but what it does allow you to do is ensure that the customer is part of the discussion throughout the organization. And I think one thing that you find, I found here, and you find probably most of you have found at some point in your careers, is that the customer sometimes is seen as the customer care's responsibility only, and it's not part of the marketing team's responsibility, or it's not part of the collections team, or whatever the non-customer-facing group really doesn't have a sense of ownership of. By making customer centricity an objective of the organization as a whole, it just allows you to bring that discussion into every part of the organization, and it really allows you to look at customers throughout their life cycle and all the touch points they have with you, not just when they pick up the phone to call you around a service.
And really, in honesty, the idea of customer centricity is certainly a bit of a buzzword right now. So based on, just coming to you, Josh, based on your experience, really what separates a brand that is actually customer centric, in inverted commas, compared to one that has perhaps listed it as something that they need to aspire towards?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. And first of all, great to be on the webinar here today with everyone as well, so thank you for having me. I was actually discussing this a little bit with Jared earlier on today before the call, and I think this concept of customer centricity is really easy to say, but what does it mean in practice? And I think that there's a number of things. The core of it is that a business has actually got to be centered around its customers in terms of financially and objectives, how a bonus is set, how a business unit's measured. If a business is organized purely around product lines, then it can make it very, very difficult to really get a view of a customer across all of those things. If you're targeting your individuals in a company based on increasing sales of particular product lines and not on increasing overall customer value, then where are the incentives for different products and different teams to work together? So I think it starts organizationally. How are you set up as a business, and are you focused around individual customers, or are you focused around different products? So I think that's the core of it. But then there's a number of really strong indicators. So if you come to customer service and social media, what are the key metrics you're being targeted around? Is service and customer experience the primary objectives, and is that reflected in how your teams are set up and what they're being tasked with? Or is it just around cost and reducing average handling time? Have you actually put in the effort to you have a real single view of the customer and integrate different systems so you can see your customers holistically, or is that something that you just talk about? And I think there's a lot of lines there where everyone wants to be customer-centric. Everyone talks about it as an aim, but have you actually made that reality in terms of how you set up your business and the metrics that you target your employees?
And with regard to those metrics, and we're going to come to that in a little bit more detail, which is it's an interesting point, Josh. And just quickly coming to you, Lisa, before we move to that, in terms of an actual kind of formal admission internally at Amica, I mean, how really what's been the change since actually committing to a customer-centric approach, not only to your social media but your wider business strategy? What has this allowed you to do, and really how has things changed?
Well, great question, Jack, and thank you, everyone, for dialing in, and thanks for having me on today. I think actually what Josh was speaking to is a nice setup to talk a little bit about Amica. I'm not sure everyone is familiar with who we are. We're actually a 108-year-old insurance company based out of Rhode Island. And I can say that from our beginnings 108 years ago, we really tried to focus on the customer and ensure that our customers first. And so for us, customer service has really been part of our culture, and we've been identified as being successful in that in a number of different ways. We've I think over the past maybe 15 years won about 36 or 37 J.D. Power and Associates awards for various things. So we are really focusing on the customer first and foremost in everything we do, so much so that over the last few years, we actually took a look at our mission statement and redefined our mission statement with our customers in mind. And I'm sure many organizations, as did we, have quite lengthy mission statements. If you ask someone in the elevator, hey, what's your mission statement? I'm guessing they may not be able to tell you, but we really summed it up into one defining sentence, and that's our mission is to create peace of mind and build enduring relationships. So for us, we really try to support this mission and everything that we do. Jared mentioned that, having customers as part of your discussion is key to identifying and being customer-centric. Here at Amica, when we look to make a business decision, the first question that we ask ourselves is, how will this impact our customers? And I think the one unique thing for us as well is that we're a mutual company. So what that means is that we're owned by our policyholders. So we're really responsible to them. So that helps breathe this kind of customer centricity within our culture and really everything that we do. So so I think it's a lot about not just talking the talk, but walking the walk.
And it kind of comes back to this issue, and you first raised it, Josh, and with regards to your specific goals and the KPIs that you attach to your social strategy as a whole, but also this idea of customer centricity, which makes it kind of more than just a buzzword. And actually coming to you, Jared, what are those specific goals and what are those KPIs that you attach to this idea of customer centricity? And I suppose, how do you know whether you have achieved success in this regard?
Yep. And I'm going to answer this question specific to, I guess, the social channels. I think if I try to answer it broadly, I could spend a while chatting. But there's probably three ways to look at it, or three buckets. One is a customer satisfaction type metrics. Two is operational metrics, performance related, productivity related, and I'll go through a couple of those, or I can go through a couple of those. And I think a combination of the two, you can demonstrate real ROI. I think starting with the ROI, so call reduction, efficiencies, cost savings, is probably you're starting at the end. I think focusing on the operational stuff first, focusing on the customer stuff first, you'll kind of get to the ROI, which I think is useful in demonstrating the value of the social channels. And maybe I'm going a little off the topic here, or off the question, Jack, so I'll come back quickly. But one of the things that we find in most of the audience probably who's worked to stand up social care teams, which is what I have done, is they are it's easy to get started, or relatively easy to get started, because you recognize you need to have a group of folks out there responding to customers in social. It's much harder to demonstrate that you need more people down the road, right? So why do I need 10 people? Why do I need 20 people? You have 3. Why is that not enough? And I think, while we want to make sure that our social care channels stay social and we don't become more call centers, I think there is a point where you start to really have to demonstrate some real productivity and benefit to the organization in order to justify that expansion, because we all know that these channels are going to grow significantly going forward. And I'll just talk about a couple metrics specifically. So operationally, we look at response times, we look at volumes, we look at in-channel resolution rate, and so that's our propensity to keep customers within social channel and not kind of send them to a call center or create a ticket and have somebody call them back. I look at agent productivity, really seeing how my agents are performing and where agents perform better. And then on the customer stuff, so we are in the process of figuring out how to introduce VOC or CSAT and NPS questions into the social channel. It's been an interesting one. If we have time for some questions about that, I'd love to hear some thoughts on that one. But introducing NPS in the social channel is a real objective for us this year. Community side, same kind of stuff, so registrants, page views, bounce rate, search, SEO, where they're coming from. And in the end, I think you kind of look at these operational things and these customer-focused metrics, and then you'll get to these real valuable and powerful, hopefully, return on investment metrics regarding call reduction, like are you diverting traffic from one channel to another, and are you efficient, and are you saving the company money? So thank you.
Yeah, and actually just coming, and I know you touched on upon this initially, Josh, and I don't know if you could go into a little bit more detail, but the kind of, I suppose, the KPIs that you would naturally attach to a customer-centric approach, and really what does success look like in this regard?
Well, look, I think Jared gave a really good overview of specific KPIs. Especially from a service perspective, so I don't think you need to rehash those. But I will say that I think one of the values of a customer-centric approach is really about understanding who are your most valuable customers. And then once you have that understanding, being able to learn from that, you learn what are their needs, what are their desires, how can we retain our most valuable customers, and how can we find more customers like them, and really ensure we're meeting their needs and not just meeting the needs of anyone who's asking for it. And so just on top of what Jared said, I think that having a really good understanding of your customer segmentations and actually implementing that in practice, being able to recognize that certain segments of customers on social media are much more valuable than others, being able to, or different than others, being able to categorize the feedback and the input you're getting from them by customer segmentation. Those kind of practices allow you to really get the most valuable data, and so I think that's a kind of major next stage.
And it was actually, that issue with deeper customer understanding that we're looking to come to next. And actually, coming over to you, Lisa, I mean, how effective has social media been in actually helping you understand specifically what your customers care about, I suppose, particularly in the sense of them sharing feelings and information that they might not tell you more directly?
Yeah, and I can say it's been very effective. I think for a lot of us here at Amica, really first and foremost, we listen. Because listening really allows us to get a true sense of what people care about, and it helps us identify opportunities to provide great service. But I think to your point, it's really amazing what people will write to us on Facebook, but they may not say to us over the telephone. So we think that that's also one of the things that's great about it, because it provides us a real opportunity and get a real indication of what people are thinking and feeling about our brand or ways that we can improve. So, behind this whole listening thought is tools, and I think a lot of us have some tools that we use, and for us, we take a look and we categorize every mention that we have so that we can try to identify what trends are out there, and if we need to make decisions regarding the things that we're hearing through the channels or figuring out ways to do a better job of supporting our customers, that all comes through in those online conversations. And actually in a few instances as well, we've even helped mitigate our risk to our reputation through the fact that we're listening. So, for us, listening is really the foundation of our social media efforts for lots of different reasons. But I think really focusing on that kind of almost raw feeling from the customer, because they're not face-to-face to someone, they're behind their computer, so it does come out a little bit more open, but we definitely see that as an opportunity.
And it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on this as well, Jared, in terms of actually using social to develop a far more granular understanding of your customer and what they care about. Again, not specifically what they care about when they call you up and they have that direct contact with you, but something that they share not directly at Comcast, but just in the Twitter sphere. How do you collect this? How do you process this to really help generate a more kind of 360 understanding of your customer individually and your customer base as a whole?
Yep, and Lisa really set this up nicely. So in addition to a servicing channel, which is what we initially stood it up for 8 years or so ago and have been using it for ever since, social provides us it's almost like a free marketing survey channel for us. So we get to hear from customers, unsolicited feedback about everything from regulations and how they impact our industry to an outage that's, internet or cable outage that's happening in some area. And it's this really unfiltered, unsolicited feedback channel for us, and it is continuous, and it is nonstop, and it is loud, and there's a lot of noise in there. So you got to, to your question, Jack, you got to spend a lot of time figuring out how you're going to listen to it and what you're going to focus on, and we've done so in a few ways. And I could talk to a couple of those, but overall, it's just a really neat place to get a lot of information around your organization. And I think the best way to start doing so, if you're not heavily into it already, is really, as Lisa said, just start listening, and you could spend a year just listening and watching and seeing what people are saying and what they're talking about. We've gotten to a point where we're fairly sophisticated with it, although we're changing and adapting every single day. But we have a bunch of tools we use. We look at volume by product, so we have a number of products. We look at volume by geography, and I know a lot of you guys know that's easier said than done, but we've developed some ways to look at what people are saying geographically. We use it very highly in significant events. So if there's a big storm in the Northeast, we can get really smart around what's going on in the Northeast, or if we're in the news for something, it really gives us an opportunity to understand what people are thinking and saying about it. Maybe I'll stop there, but maybe I'll just repeat myself one more time. It's just such a neat channel for us to get kind of unsolicited, unfiltered feedback from customers. It's really great.
And actually coming over to you, Josh, on that, I mean, as Jared rightly pointed out, in some ways, I suppose the unsolicited nature of it and the unfiltered nature of it is fantastic, but there comes a point where there is just a lot of noise, and actually filtering that down into kind of actionable bits of insight, and really that can be a challenge as well. So I suppose my question for you is firstly, how can you generate a kind of clearer understanding from kind of the wealth of noise out there?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to this. I mean, the most important thing is that you're not just getting all this raw data, right? You are actually categorizing it, tagging it, having sentiment data added to that. Like Jared said, we're splitting out the volume by product, but being able to really dig in deeper than into that. If people are having service issues or complaints, what types of complaints? When are they complaining? How does that relate to different products? Those kind of data can be really, really valuable. We have a customer called Costa Coffee back in the UK. We're one of the biggest coffee chains, and we've got a great case study of, because they were listening on social media and listening to what people were asking and talking about, they realized there was a really significant market of their customers who were asking for gluten-free products. And they took that data internally to their management team and were able to introduce a completely new product line that was the only one for any coffee shop in the UK to be approved by the CVAC Society, and it's been a huge financial success for them. And that kind of touches on one of the other really, really amazing things about social, which is that because of its public nature, senior execs are interested. They really want to hear. They can see what's going on Twitter. They can see what's going on Facebook, and the fact that people are talking about this publicly gives much more impetus to actually create action than reports from other traditional customer service channels.
Fantastic. And actually, I'd like to come back to you, Lisa, in this regard of kind of structuring not only what you're seeing, but also, I suppose, making sure that you're structuring your team in the right way as well. And it comes to this idea of personalization and timing, and really how have you gone about structuring your team specifically for a kind of timely and an efficient response to either a customer service issue or perhaps a marketing opportunity that has arisen?
Well, for us, it's a lot about communication. We work very closely with our internal business units to have our customer service or our customer questions answered or issues resolved. And a lot of that, ironically, we talk about our mission being building relationships. We build relationships internally, and we also build relationships externally as well. So there's a lot of internal relationship building that takes place here at Amica to ensure that people understand what we do on our channels. People understand how we do it. People understand that if we have a question or a complaint or a customer needs something on social, that everybody kind of jumps in and tries to assist. So our structure is that our frontline team here in marketing kind of takes a look at the situation, sends it to the appropriate business unit, and then they kind of get the background of what's happening so that we can try to assist in developing a response that would go back on our channels. The one thing that is a bit challenging for us is we're a highly regulated industry, and there's a lot of privacy concerns that go into the things that we would want to talk about on social. So it limits our hand in that we can't necessarily resolve issues over our social channels. But we've often had situations in which we're working with our business units, we're passing along some information with a customer question, and before we're even able to draft a response, our teams are on the phone with that customer getting the question resolved or the issue resolved. So it really goes back to internal team building, internal relationship building, and it really is setting, really clear expectations around the fact that, this is social, it's a public forum. We want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward and that we're demonstrating the same customer service in this online form as we would over the telephone or in any other medium. So, you know, you talk about social being a conversation. It's certainly a lot of an internal conversation as well. But I think the more communication that you can have internally around it, I think that the better understanding everyone will have and the more successful you'll be.
And actually, before we move on, I'd just like to pop the same question over to you, Jared. And actually, I know you mentioned earlier that response times is obviously a kind of fundamental part of the way in which you measure the success of your social customer service. And really, how have you gone about establishing a structure and the right internal processes and capabilities that allow you to react in if not real time, then as quickly as possible?
Right. So I could talk a little bit about the org structure of my team, and then beyond that, as Lisa was talking about, there's a significant amount of coordination that needs to happen with other organizations throughout the company. So within my team, it's taken us a while to get to the org structure we're at now, but I think we've kind of finally hit on something that's going to make a lot of sense. So we have a group of folks who analyze volume coming in and just pretty much help sort it without engaging with customers. So you can do a lot of this through machines, through tools, right? And we have an engagement console we utilize, and there's a number of really good ones out there that can help you do this. But we've also added a human element on top of it. So we have folks sorting, and they're dumping into buckets, bucket A, B, and C. We have a group, next group we have is a bunch of agents who actually respond. So they're kind of the work horses of the team, and they're doing the direct engagement. And then we have a smaller group of, we call them experts, ninjas really, who come in and in really difficult situations and work through tense or technically challenging issues for customers. On the side of that, we've developed a whole infrastructure around analysis. So we have a team of analysts who look at, and we talked a little bit earlier about the fire hose, right, of social and what customers are saying about your brand. We develop a team who's really focused solely on that, whether it's recurring or kind of one-time events. And through them and the management group on our digital care team, we have a really tight relationship with our respective partners in marketing, those who own acquisition channels, those who own our Facebook page, those who own other digital properties, and of course our public relations or corporate communications team. So it's really a fairly detailed infrastructure we've built, but it allows us to quickly get around incoming volume and understand what it is and understand what's customer focused, understand what's brand focused or marketing focused, and make sure the right folks are engaged. And we're not quite there yet, but one thing I think is extremely helpful for us and will be going forward is getting everyone, whether they're in a care role or a marketing or communications role, utilizing the same tools. So the more people you have in your organization looking at social through the same lens, the easier it is to understand the volume, to analyze it, to pass it around from one group to another, and really to make sure that you are, as Jack said, responding as near real time as you can.
And at this point, I'm delighted to welcome Jen to the discussion. I know we had a couple of issues first getting her involved. But just to very, very quickly, Jen, I hope you're hearing us okay, and can we hear you okay? Can you just speak for me quickly?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. There we are. There we go. So without to disrupt the discussion too quickly, thank you so much again for joining us, Jen. And really one of the things that was mentioned in the build-up to the webinar from our audience was this ability of social to generate, I suppose, a one-to-one interaction in the age of mass media, and this idea of what made the old way, in inverted commas, customer-centric. So I suppose for you, Jen, I assume this old way was the kind of face-to-face interaction where the agent would sit in front of the customer and get to know them, learn about their family and their aspirations, and generate this one-to-one interaction actually in store. But not to say that this doesn't still happen, but how can social media allow you to generate this one-to-one interaction in the 21st century?
Well, definitely, and I'm new to my role. I've been in the role about 2 months, and it's a Chief Marketing and Client Experience Officer role. So just the fact that the client experience role was added together with marketing shows that the company takes, customer and client experience really seriously. From a social media perspective, we, started very much using social media to really just field comments from the field, from, complaints mainly and issues with customers and clients. But right now, we're using it more and more to engage in a more scalable way with potential clients as well as existing clients. And what we've learned is, well, a lot of times the conversation is still about, I need to fix this, I need to fix that, based on things that maybe ordinarily people would go in the branch to resolve. They can now resolve with our 24/7 social media support and resolve it more easily. But what we also see is a lot of people sharing ideas and questions and things that actually help us inform our product development and our offering development. For example, we're doing a lot with small businesses. We have a program called Smart Ideas for Small Businesses. And what we've noticed is people through social are extremely keen on sharing, sometimes with little incentive, with sharing their small business ideas. Sometimes it's because they think that we can provide additional advice for them. Sometimes it's because it is part of a sweeps or a contest. But what we've been able to do is really listen to that, listen to these individual business owners, these would-be entrepreneurs, et cetera, and really figure out how we can make our products and our service delivery to that segment even better. The same is true in the retail segment. Quite frankly, for people of all, sort of different segment groups. But what we do, I think the small business segment is one that's particularly keen on having us engage at that one-to-one level, because everybody has a great entrepreneurial story to share, and it's a lot easier to share it on social than have to go into the branch to talk to somebody.
Mm. And in actual fact, it's interesting you mentioned this. Well, we discussed it earlier slightly, this idea of segmentation, and really, I suppose, when talking about customer centricity, another question that has to be asked is which customer are you actually talking about? So just coming over to you, Josh, I mean, in terms of how companies can segment their audiences on social media to generate a more personalized approach, what kind of what success stories have you seen, and what are the most effective ways of doing so?
Yeah, I think there's, again, a few things in here. When it comes just to social by itself, I think that it's really important to recognize a customer holistically, right? If someone has a service issue, they're never just going to message you once or tweet at you once. There's going to be multiple tweets. It's going to shift from public to private. There can sometimes be multiple people getting involved in a conversation. Sometimes they might @message you directly. Sometimes they might just tweet using your product name. And so what I think the most important thing is being able to get a full customer record. At any time when an agent looks at a customer, being able to see the full history of every interaction with that person, private and public, and ideally being able to have the same agent deal with the same customer. And if you get that right, social media can be really one of the most powerful ways to drive your large-scale, authentic, one-on-one engagement. Partly because of the medium, right, where people are using it to share their real identity. They're used to this very authentic conversation. So having that full customer record, I think, is one of the most important things. And then the next step, as we've touched on earlier, is really around CRM integration, right? Recognizing that your customers aren't just social; they're a person. There are lots of other channels they've interacted with you, products they bought, and being able to link that data together, and allowing your agents to always have that holistic view that as soon as someone messages you on a social media platform, actually knowing what type of customer they are they part of your loyalty member scheme, having all that information at hand so that the agent can instantly respond and resolve issues in the way that the customer expects can be extremely powerful.
Most definitely, and in becoming a truly customer-centric, I think the notion of this single view of the customer is often cited. So I might have tweeted at the company, I might have called the 0800 number, and 3 weeks later I might still have the same issue. So I'm wondering, do they know me? Do they know how I've already tried to resolve this issue? And this is a nice segue, actually, Josh, into our second poll. And we'd love to get an idea from our audience to what extent they feel they have, I suppose, achieved this single view of the customer. So the question is, again, it's just a simple yes or no answer. So the question is, when it comes to your interactions on social, do you feel you have achieved a single view of your customer across different touch points and channels? When it comes to your interactions on social, do you feel you have achieved this single view of the customer across your different touch points and channels? Just a simple yes and no answer. Just got another 5 seconds. If you haven't already voted, it would be fantastic if you could. Thank you very much. Now, it would be interesting to see the extent to which, so as we can see, the majority has indeed answered no to that question. So around 66% have said that they have yet to achieve this kind of single view of the customer, and I suppose want to do so based on the discussion of what we just mentioned. And actually, just coming over to you, Lisa, you know, how important is it to secure this holistic view of the customer? And I suppose how have you gone about trying to achieve this?
Well, I have to be honest, Jack, and let you know that I'm just glad we're not alone in that. The fact that we haven't yet achieved that, I think it's so incredibly important, and Josh mentioned it, when you talk about having meaningful interactions with customers. I mean, the only way that you can really do that is to get to know them. And, you know, for us being so customer-centric, we've had a lot of conversations about, you know, the 360-degree view of the customer and how to go best achieving that. And we are absolutely working toward that because we know our customers expect it from us. You know, customer expectations have changed significantly over the years, and you know, we've got 2 different companies and several different departments, but to our customers, we're just Amica. So having that holistic view of our customers will absolutely allow us to provide more meaningful interactions with them, really get to know them, and again, go back to building and deepening those relationships with them. So I absolutely applaud the organizations that have answered yes to that question, and that's certainly something that we are working toward, but we're not quite there yet.
And actually, I'd like to come over to you on this issue, Jen. I mean, to what extent? I mean, we know that in small organisations, in large organisations, this is a real challenge to secure this holistic view of the customer, both in terms of aiding your social media for customer service, but also your marketing and wider customer experience efforts. I mean, how are you trying to achieve this holistic view?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree that it's actually very challenging to do, and there's a variety of reasons why, you know, it's challenging in big organizations or small organizations. We've started from the top down and really with an internal campaign really talked about, you know, one team client first. Is one of the things we've noticed is it's not only just that different groups sometimes, you know, track views of customers and using different tools. For example, up until recently, we had a social media team and then a social media team that dealt with client service. And obviously, you know, putting those groups together and incenting them to collaborate, even though there's a pure amount of work on both sides and both paths, it was necessary to get them to kind of, you know, sync up on an integrated view. And that's when it just comes to social. Then, you know, you have groups working through all the customer touch points across all of the organization, and each of them has their own set of incentives to view the customers slightly different. And so what we've tried to do is culturally, you know, reward people for collaborating as one team client first, but that's nice to say, but if you don't align your incentives for individuals and teams to collaborate with each other and keep the client at the center of it all, you know, it's challenging. So what we've tried to really do is map out, you know, who has a single or who has a contact with the customer, and then make sure each of those individual touch points, we're all looking at the same set of metrics. We're also all working from the same playbook in terms of kind of what are the norms for engagement with our clients across our different segments. And then it's making sure from a social perspective, like I said, is making sure the teams are collaborating amongst each other, that quote unquote when they have formal social in their job descriptions, but then also socializing all with no pun intended, with the rest of the groups in the organization, the learnings they get from social. So we've used social most recently to really inform advertising campaigns about what real clients are really interested in hearing from the bank about their key messages, and that's helped marketing. We've used it to help inform what clients think about our product releases, our new mobile app, and what people think about it. And I mentioned before, in terms of also developing our business and B2B offerings. So we've sort of empowered our social team to be on the front line, but to bring this view back to whatever group is relevant, and as one team kind of act together, and then in parallel working on aligning the incentives so that people feel incented to work together.
And I suppose structuring yourself in a way that you're allowed to distribute those valuable insights as effectively and efficiently as possible. And I mean, this issue of the fact that we have so many different touch points now, and in the age of multi-channel customer service especially, I think it's important to remember that the issues being raised through social, the customer has proactively chosen to reach out to you in this way. So the issue, therefore, if it can be, should be resolved on social. And I suppose coming over to you, Josh, I mean, how can you go about ensuring that if the conversation is indeed started on social, firstly, it remains there, and I suppose secondly, and more importantly, it is resolved on social?
Sure. I mean, if you take a lot of our customers who are really committed to taking a social-first approach to customer service, then unless they have legal restrictions, like Lisa mentioned earlier, where that sometimes they're restricted from actually asking for personal information on social, there's almost no reason you can't resolve any service issue in channel. You have the capability to take things to a private message, whether that's on Facebook or Twitter, even Instagram, where you can send as many messages as you want. So anything you could resolve over text, you could do over chat or email, you can resolve over social media. But it has all these added advantages of having a persistent identity, being cross-platform, you're working on a desktop and then a mobile, then a social media and a smartphone as well. And so I think all it really takes is commitment from the company to saying, we're not just going to treat social media as a feeder into something else. We're not going to ask people to email us or phone us. But if someone approached us in a social media channel, we're going to do that as if they'd come over chat or email, and we're going to be committed to having real agents who are actually going to resolve their issues. Now, obviously, there are additional things you can do in terms of training, process. You're ensuring you have the platforms like Conversocial that actually are threading conversations between public and private, so you can easily deal with things in a private medium if you need. Having proper routing so that when questions come in, they're being routed to the right agents who can actually resolve those issues. So there's all those things you can do to improve the process, but I think the core of it is just having that commitment as a company to having this social-first approach and treating social media as one of your primary support channels.
I know from talking to you, Jared, one of the kind of fundamental aims that you mentioned is ensuring that social is indeed the kind of first and last point of call of your customer. I mean, how are you going about doing so, and how are you going about achieving this?
Yeah, and Josh really took a lot of the words right out of my mouth, so I won't add too much to what he said, but empowering your agents, your frontline agents, to have access and capabilities to do whatever it may happen to be that they need to do, and I think there's a few ways to start that, right? So you start with your, you look at the profiles and access and capabilities of those most senior folks in your call centers or your chat channels, right, and you duplicate them over to the social team, and then you find out what the gaps are after that, and you start tackling them from highest frequency down. That's really what we've had to do here. In many cases, our agents in the social channel are empowered more so than folks almost anywhere in the organization, and I think it's just to meet that objective, right? Just so that if they come, as you said, and when you opened up this question, Jack, if they come to you in social, they want to be in social, and arguably you could use that for any channel. So customer, goes into the IVR, they likely want to stay into the IVR. They talk to a phone agent, they likely want to talk to a phone agent, and not go to another channel. And I think we're trying to meet that head on here by empowering our agents to really do whatever it takes to solve their problem, short of going to their home for an install. Yep. I mean, I think that's kind of the start and the end of it. It's really all about empowerment and understanding what your customer is going to want via this channel and making sure that you provide the capability to do so. And do it in as few touches as you can.
Most definitely, and I suppose one of the kind of the final themes that we come onto in the discussion is looking at the idea of customer loyalty, and of course one of the benefits associated with achieving a truly customer-centric approach is loyalty, is brand loyalty and brand affinity. And coming to you, Jen, I mean, how important has social media been in helping to enhance customer loyalty, and really, and how are you hoping to use it to keep customers coming back?
I mean, it's a great question. Really, it's been one of our most rapid response tools that we're using because we can get ahead of it, right? We can start to see sentiment. We can start to see issues that are just not one-offs. Obviously, we address all the one-offs, but my point is when we start to see broader patterns emerging, either because there's insights that are, helping us drive new products or services, unmet needs, unmet segments in the market out there, but then also addressing, broader customer service issues or technology issues as well. It also enables us to really tap into local community efforts, right? So we can listen not only at the broader level, but we can listen in the Houston area or the El Paso area or the areas in which we're strong in the footprint, and we can listen from a slightly different, angle, and therefore being able to reach out, and let people not only know about us as a big brand, but also as a local brand, because banking, at the end of the day, while we're a digital bank and we can be anywhere, anytime, we're also a very local organization, and we want to engage with people in a more custom-tailored way in their local markets. It also enables us to really reshape our brand. I mean, social is one of the best tools out there now to help companies, really learn about whether what we think their brand stands for resonates. Right? So we've used social to test some branding positioning ideas. We've used social to basically communicate out and engage social followers about some of the things about our brand that we'd like to talk about. We've used it to test our mobile app, our new mobile app. We've used it to showcase some branding messages as well. So in a nutshell, it's been a really effective tool for us, and it's great because it's the fastest, easiest tool that we have at our disposition.
Fantastic. And actually, just before we, we're coming towards the end of the webinar, I have been kind of filtering in questions both through Twitter and also in the chat box. And we just have a final question from Bruna Souza, and I'm just going to bring this to you, Lisa. And it's looking at creative personalization at scale. And she mentions that thousands of creative versions might be necessary to deliver the right personalized message. And brands must produce these thousands of variations manually. What are you doing to make sure that you are delivering kind of personalized creative at scale?
Oh, I think, I think the question goes back to, and maybe this is rewording the question a little bit, is that, can you kind of be everything to everyone? And I think that's a really interesting question. And, for us, we know we can't be everything to everyone, but we aspire to be everything for someone. So it really is trying to get an understanding of who we're speaking with and understanding of what's important to them, and really try to personalize every interaction that we have with our customers online, whether we speak to longevity with us or speak to even things as small, what may seem as small as talking about how much snow they have in their area. But it's really part of a bigger picture of humanizing our brand, and I think that's really incredibly important in such an almost anonymous online channel. I think it's really easy for us to kind of hide behind our logo, but that's not what we are looking to do. We're really looking to create and build relationships and show people who we are as a company and that we care. So it's interesting because we have a lot of very passionate customers, and that shows through but we also have to highlight that passion externally as well. And again, I don't think that there's a way to be everything for everyone, but we are aspiring to be everything for someone. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I hope it does.
No, certainly, and as you rightly pointed out, with many of the issues associated with this, it is an ongoing challenge, and I don't think anybody has kind of achieved the holy grail yet. But one of the questions, I know we mentioned timing before, so we'll end on this question, but I'm just going to kind of put it out firstly to Josh and also Jen and Jared if they have their thoughts on it. Much has been said about the importance of timing when it comes to customer experience as a whole, and one of our audience mentions the example of Amazon, where you can watch a video, and if the video quality wasn't good enough, their systems know automatically, I assume through kind of checking bandwidth, etc., that they then issue a refund as soon as the movie is done. I mean, this exemplifies that the experience is timely, the experience is here and now. Again, Josh, I mean, just a kind of final firing shot. I mean, how do you go about structuring for this? How do you put in the capabilities to ensure that you can react in a timely fashion and you can, I suppose, utilize an opportunity like this?
Yeah, I'll say a few things. I know we don't have a lot of time. I think, firstly, that's an amazing example of how they've really invested in the technology to avoid someone having to get in touch with customer service unless they really have to, right? And technology is so powerful. Everyone has a smartphone. Everyone has an application. You can design your services in such a way that you should be doing everything you can to make the service itself, the product itself, take care of itself, right? And that someone should only have to contact customer service when they really need to speak to a human being. And if you do that, then you can ensure that you're investing properly in customer service so that when someone does get in touch, you can have a real human being who can get right back at them and engage with them in a very human, authentic way that really helps them. And I think where companies get into trouble is where they end up having huge service organizations with huge costs, a lot of which are dealing with basic transactions, which then results in slow response times, IVRs, kind of semi-automated processes, which are horrible for customers. And if you can really avoid your customers having to get in touch with you for those kind of issues, then it allows you to really focus on delivering service in a very fast but very authentic and human way. And I think that's also one of the amazing opportunities for social media in the way that it really allows that.
And just to kind of bring the same issue over to you, Jen, just to wrap up. I mean, what Josh mentioned there, and also, of course, the example that I mentioned before. I mean, how have you gone about structuring to ensure that you can kind of react to opportunities when they arise? I mean, I'm sure this for many might not initially be seen as an opportunity, but really, how do you make sure that you are reacting in real time and you are making the most of these kind of opportunities?
Like I said, it really does come down to a little bit of the incentives, right? So we have incentives to make sure that people are responding in real time. They're sharing it with the relevant parts of the organization that need to act when issues or opportunities exist. We've also done something to celebrate the people who are on the front line, who are reacting in real time, whether it's, resolving a problem quickly or identifying something that could spiral out of control if not resolved quickly, or just identifying a key insight. And so we have a program internally where we recognize people that embody the spirit of real time. And I think that's really important. I believe at the end of the day, while we invested in some good tools are great, but if you don't have the culture or the incentive or the rewards or recognition, you're not going to get the real-time mindset and action that social can help you provide.
Thank you again, Jen, and both for the answer and the insight. And really, what's been nice about today's discussion is the differing perspectives, is the differing kind of positions that each of our speakers have come from, and also our audience as well. Unfortunately, given the time, it's now the end of questions and the end of the webinar for today. Apologies if I was unable to get round to your question, and we've had some great engagement both on Twitter and also a lot of questions coming through the chat box. So thank you so much for kind of sending those through. Of course, I'd also like to thank our speakers for today, Jen, Jared, Joss, and Lisa, for their insight and for their contributions. The discussion has been really interesting and thoroughly enjoyable. So thank you again all for that. Now, before everyone leaves to go and get certainly a well-deserved coffee, we'll be sending out the recording of this webinar next week, so there's no need to worry if you missed any parts of the discussion. What's more, if you still have a question that you'd like to ask any of our panelists in person, they will all be there speaking alongside 40 other leading senior executives in the social space at the 6th Annual Corporate Social Media Summit in New York on the 15th and 16th. And you can see on your screen some of the brands that will be speaking and sharing their best practice at the summit, as well as our panelists for today. And I've just sent through a link to the summit website in the comment field also, so please do check out the full speaker lineup and the comprehensive agenda there. Now, thank you once again for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you, and another final big thank you to our speakers. And I hope that everyone has a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks again.